So I think a lot of people think they know whiskey and they know where it comes from and the story of it, but what the New World whiskies are proving is that that doesn't have to be the case.
New World Whisky, I guess, means to me whiskies that are from non-traditional producing countries or regions, though I think it probably goes a little bit deeper than that.
You've got an opportunity to talk about the owners, the real, you know, they're still at the distillery, they're working there, they're doing all these things.
You know, none of my ancestors were in the distilling business. It's not based on what so-and-so did 100 years ago, it's based on what makes great whiskey now.
I think for years Scotch was a kind of victim of the fact that you couldn't mix it, you couldn't add ice, you couldn't add water. I think things are changing. There is still times where we make cocktails here at the gate and I feel like there's a sniper maybe waiting to take someone out because we're making cocktails with it. New World Whisky to me means interesting. Possibly pushing the boundaries a little bit from what people usually think about a category like whiskey.
We used to sort of have these kind of major whiskey producing regions of Scotland, Ireland, USA, Canada, Japan, and now we have whiskies being produced all over the world.
What drives our development in all our spirits is flavour, is taste. Great booze for great people at great prices. That message resonates. It goes completely counterintuitive to what people would expect.
Initially, when you meet people at trade shows, they're like, Danish, you know, Scandinavian whiskey. Is that good? Well, I prefer my whiskey old and from Scotland. Then they hear the story about the founders and the production. They start laughing, you know, and suddenly we can't get rid of them.
If they understand what we're trying to do to create interesting flavours, then in the long run, hopefully that's going to help them with their decision about what whiskey brand they're going to purchase.
There's a new kind of consumer who is more adventurous, more confident, and really curious about trying new flavours, not just in whiskey, but in all spirits as a whole.
And I think that culture now will continue. I think people are asking more questions of the products that they're buying. They're not just willing to say, okay, that's a big brand, I know it, David Beckham promotes it, hey, I'm gonna buy it. They're gonna look at it and say, actually, is this an interesting product? And do I really want to buy it? And I think brands are going to have to really rethink about the way they look and engage with the consumer, because the consumer has become very, very savvy. They've had time. They've had a lot of time, and you know they're the experts now.
I think people feel like it's their right to know as much about the brand as they need to make an informed choice. This great big glass window behind me is this lovely great big metaphor for transparency. There's no hiding, there's no messing around, it's not actually made somewhere else. The whole idea of transparency and accessibility resonates when you see this, because there is no other room where we actually make it. I'd like to think that with the kind of messaging that we stand behind, the reason why the business is what it is today, that we are as inclusive as we possibly can be. And that's the brand's responsibility, is to make sure that how the drink and the category is promoted is as inclusive as possible.
Like, we only talk about flavour in here. When we talk about whiskey, we don't talk about yeast strains, we don't talk about fermentation, we don't talk about phenols. We stay away from the jargon that we've been, our little whiskey bubble we're all in, where we all just tell each other the same words and things we want. We want to talk to people on a more human, basic level about flavour, about whiskey.
I don't think it's necessarily that consumers are more confident, but they're spending more time to educate themselves and actually be exposed to different ideas of how to consume whiskey and what counts as a whiskey. So I think they're just getting more informed, more educated, and then more confident once they've done that research themselves.
I think what's clear to me is that you've got a generation of consumers who are hungry for discovery, trying new things and having new flavour experiences on the one hand. You've got a huge number of new producers who are producing amazing new whiskies which really kind of push the envelope of what whiskey can be. The challenge has always been about how do you connect those things.